Welcome into Second Down right here on ESPN Radio. Christian Gokel alongside Cody Queen, Cam Mercery, and Southern Brit. Glad to have you hanging alongside us here on this Monday afternoon. Got a lot to dive into. The Hawks dropping 2 straight over the weekend. Interesting article from Bill Conley about the ifs for the national title contenders. And also we'll dive into some Braves talk. Can a free agent fix what's wrong with the Atlanta Braves? So a ton to dive into today, but Cam, let's start with the Atlanta Hawks. You dropped 2 in a row in the series. You took that commanding 1-0 lead up in Milwaukee, get absolutely housed in game 2. And then last night, it's tight until the very end. And then Chris Middleton, a guy who you, sir, were absolutely bashing last week. Chris Middleton drops 5 straight buckets on you in the fourth quarter, puts up 20 in the fourth to give the Bucks a 2-1 series lead. Cam, just a rough weekend for the Atlanta Hawks.
It was rough. Chris Middleton, he had a good night last night, but games 1 and 2, he struggled. That's what he does. He'll give you one good game, but I'm not panicking. I think people forget the Hawks were down 2-1 against Philly. They were down 2-1, and then they pulled off 2 straight, lost 6 and won game 7. So there's no panic. But I will say this: the Hawks live and die by the 3, and it bit them in the butt last night. It really did in the fourth quarter.
Well, you say it's not time to panic, but I'd say I'd be pretty dang worried right now. If I'm not panicking, I'm taking a step back, I'm really concerned. Bogey hasn't been the same since he did whatever he's done to that knee. Trae Young stepping on an official's foot rolls the ankle, and they have officially called it an ankle sprain. Yep. He wasn't the same when he came back into that game last night, and it just seems like if Clint Capella's not on the court, you're going to struggle to match up with Brooks Lopez and Giannis, right? When those two guys are on the court. I mean, last night when they went on their run, your backcourt was Lou Williams and Trae Young with a bum ankle. Like, I love Lou Williams. I love Trae Young. You can't have both of those guys on the court at the same time against the Bucks. Come on, Cam.
I mean, I agree. And you could tell last night without Capella, they struggled. They did struggle really, really bad because they had no rim protection. And I just didn't get it. You let Giannis beat you, yes, of course. But at the same time, make it a little bit harder. John Collins played good defense, but you have to have help right there when he does that spin move that he always wants to do when he gets in the paint. But yeah, it was bad last night defensively with Trae and Lou when they came back. And now Trae's banged up. I still think the Hawks will win this next game. But if they do lose, going down 3-1, that's a tall order. That's a tall task for them to come back.
Well, Southern, it's one of those interesting things, right? It's why you have to look at the whole series and not just the number, right? If you say the Hawks were down 2-1 in the series through 3 games, before the series, you're like, okay, so they lost the first 2 in Milwaukee and they took game 3 at home. That makes sense. But I think the way the series has gone, where you steal game 1 in Milwaukee and you look like the better team in that game, but then the next 2 games went the way they went, right? Where you get absolutely blown out in game 2, and then Trae Young gets hurt in game 3. I think that's not the direction you want the momentum going in this series.
Oh, for sure, Christian. And that's why we like the playoffs so much, is because as you continue to watch it, you start to see who has the most endurance, not just the talent, but whose bodies can hold up, whose mentality can hold up. And unfortunately, it looks like the Hawks are starting to get a little banged up. But maybe they'll pull it out in the end.
Well, that's one of those big things, Cody, is we talked about before the playoffs, is the Hawks have no playoff experience outside of like Clint Capella and Danilo Gallinari are the 2 guys on the team with significant playoff experience. But Trae Young, John Collins, guys like that haven't gone through significant stretches of having to play physical playoff basketball. And I think Southern's right. You're starting to see those guys start to wear down a little bit. Look, I get the Trae Young thing was a freak injury, right? The officials are technically part of the court, and so there's nothing you can do with that. You kind of have to be aware where the officials are, but still just kind of a freak injury. But at the same time, Bogey getting banged up, right? Just that mental toll that it's starting to take. You're playing against a much more physical team, a team that's a lot more athletic than you, and it's starting to show a little bit in the past couple games.
Yeah, whenever you play a big team like this in the playoffs where they're in the stretch and they're healthier, and someone said it on the other day was a Shaq actually saying whoever's the healthiest at the end of the year is going to win it all. And once you start getting banged up at the end like this, it's unfortunate. The Hawks were kind of outnumbered in the first place. So now with the injuries on top of it, this is going to add up even more. Like fourth quarter, they didn't even get in the 20s last night. And I think they almost got doubled up. But yeah, between the Bucks and everything. So it's obviously we know the Bucks is a better team, right? We already knew that.
I mean, you have a 2-time MVP on your team.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we already know that. So if they can steal more games, if they can advance, it'd be awesome. But from right now, the way the Bucks bounce back after game one, dude, they're looking dangerous. They're looking animalistic.
Well, if Chris Middleton can keep it up, right? Because it was what I was saying with the 76ers series, which that one went all the way until the very end, game 7. But with the 76ers, don't focus your entire defense on stopping one guy, because Giannis, as good as he is, isn't going to score 108 points to beat you, right? If he puts up 40, if he puts up 50, fine. Just don't let Chris Middleton beat you, right? Don't let the other role players beat you. I mean, I don't know that Brooks Lopez is going to beat you, but don't let the other guys. I love Brooks Lopez, but I don't think he's going to be the reason you lose a game. But Bobby Portis sure can be. Like we saw that when Bobby Portis comes on, that was huge for the Bucks. So don't let Giannis, being as good as he is, completely control your defense, because if he scores 60 points, fine. Just don't let the other guys blow up in your face. And we've seen it. The NBA's changed over the past 15 years. The 2 points in the paint, yeah, that's great, but it's not the most valuable shot anymore, right? It's being able to consistently hit those 3-pointers, and that's what we saw. The Hawks and the Bucks were neck and neck throughout that entire game, and then Chris Middleton started heating up from 3. Right, I know there's a 2 in there with just like his big toe on the line was the reason it was a 2, but he started heating up from behind the arc and they separated. The Hawks couldn't keep up with it. So I think if the Hawks are going to do it, Cam said a couple of things. You have to be better from the 3-point line, which I don't know if that means you just don't play Bogey anymore, Cam, or you play him in a very limited role, because it seems like that knee's affecting him behind the arch and it's affecting him on defense. So maybe Kevin Huerter gets a bigger role. Can't have John Collins get 4 quick fouls like that. You can't have that if you're expecting to compete with this team. But at the same time, you need Trae Young to hit his shots from 3. Gallinari's been hitting his open looks. So you need Trae Young to hit his shots. You need Kevin Huerter to hit his shots if you're going to stand a chance. It'd be great. It'd be great to get Bogey back, but I think he's hurt. Like, I don't know that you're going to get him back.
Well, it's not only that. If you're taking those chances on those threes, usually you're a good rebounding team. The last 2 games have been horrible. They've been horrible rebounding.
But I think that's a couple things. Number one, the Bucks are just bigger than you.
Yeah.
But number 2, and they talked about this on the broadcast like last night, Cam, those long 3-pointers, right? Those are a little bit different, because long 3-pointers lead to long rebounds, which is where you get the Bucks out on the fast break, where all of a sudden your stretch. If you're hitting the in rhythm 3-pointers, it's a little bit different than just Trae Young pulling up from 35 feet and then all of a sudden the Bucks are on the fast break the other way. I mean, maybe just the shot selection on the 3-pointers can be a little bit better, Cam.
Yeah, I agree. They just need somebody to stop the bleeding, though. When they're missing a lot of threes, they need somebody to hit a mid-range to stop the bleeding and get them back into rhythm. And you could tell last night, especially when Trae got hurt, they have nobody that could do that. Lou Williams is capable, but he's not going to get the minutes in this game because of his defense. But the Bucks go how Chris Middleton go. I know that sounds crazy. 2-time MVP and Defensive Player of the Year on Milwaukee, but look what he did against Brooklyn last series, and now the Hawks. They go how he goes.
I don't want to attribute to the wrong person, but I think it might have been Charles Barkley that said that Chris Middleton, or Kendrick Perkins. They might have been Kendrick Perkins that said Giannis is the Robin and Chris Middleton is the Batman on that team. You think that's taking it too far? I mean, that's a 2-time MVP.
That's not taking it too far. Look who closes games every series this playoffs against Brooklyn. 38 twice and then 38 last night. He closes games for them. He's their closer. So you stop him, you win.
I don't know about all that. I think, dude, they're both equally awesome. They're both equally awesome, as in, like, not one's better than the other, as in, like, Batman or Robin. I'd say an equal Avenger type of thing. You know what I mean? Because Giannis had like a double last night and everything. He was getting the freaking balls off the glass. He was draining.
But to Cam's point, when he was doing all of that, and it was still tied when Chris Middleton took over. is when they separated.
Yeah, but without Giannis, they wouldn't even had that
the Hawks had
chance.
the Hawks had nothing for Chris Middleton at the end. And again, that's because your backcourt, because of injuries and because a lot of other stuff that was happening, your backcourt was Lou Williams and Trae Young, which if I get to make any decision with the Hawks, they should never be on the court at the same time. I think Lou Williams does a great job in his role, which is the last 3 minutes of the quarter, you're going to come in and you're going to play for Trae Young. So 12 minutes a game, you're going to come in, play point guard. Okay. And like to your point, Cam, when you need that spark and you need some buckets, you can get Trae Young some rest. And Lou Williams has shown throughout these playoffs, he can jump in and provide a spark. But those two dudes who are, on average 6'1", should never be on the court at the same time.
Yeah, they should. They're like 6'1", 6 feet, and then the point guard for the Bucks, Drew Holiday, 6'4". That's the smallest person on the court. So, yeah, that's a bad defensive lineup. I'm sure they make a game plan.
That's Lloyd Pierce Hawks defense right there. When you have those two dudes,
Nate McMillan, you'll switch it up next game, and I still like the Hawks winning next game, so it's all good. He'll switch it up.
They're going to need to do something because the Bucks have looked pretty dominant the past 8 quarters. We'll come back, though. Bill Connelly from ESPN.com put out his ifs list. Ifs, the big ifs for the national title contenders in college football. Georgia on the list. How many ifs does Georgia have, according to Bill Connelly? We'll dive into it when we come back next right here on Second Down. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Bill Conley dropped his latest article on ESPN Plus, and it is his IFS list, IFS, the IFS list for the national title contenders in college football. And I thought this was really interesting because there's a lot of different tier structures that go on inside college football reporting, right? Where you just go like the defensive tiers, secondary tiers, and you kind of rank them out that way. He does the tiers by number of ifs your team has, according to Bill Conley. And so he did this for the national title contenders. Texas is on there. So I'd have a few question marks around Texas, a national title contender for Bill Conley there.
Their quarterback,
but they are, but they are on the list. But that being said, before we dive into the ifs for some of these teams, I did want to go around the room and get y'all's opinion. And Cam, I'll start with you with Georgia. For Georgia, what is your biggest if? If this happens, Georgia is a national title contender.
If the wide receivers can show up this year and the running backs can show up, I think they'll win the national championship. I'm not worried about JT Daniels. I'm worried about those two cores right there. They show up, I think they'll win it all.
All right, so Cam's is if the pass catchers can show up. Southern, what is your biggest concern? What is your biggest if? So if this happens, Georgia's a national title contender.
Well, I think the team has the talent there, quarterbacks there. I think our line's there. It's just if Georgia's curse doesn't live on.
Oh, the curse.
No.
Gary Gaines will be very mad at you because Coach Gary Gaines said ain't no curses. But, I mean, I'm kind of with you on the same.
I would like to say ain't no curses, but let's see that then.
Yeah, Tyler Simmons was on sides and all that. Yeah, that's tough. So, yeah, Southern, like, going very much like you can help out with the wide receivers by like a wide receiver coach, a new scheme, drawing up some bubble screens, right, for your wide receivers. I guess you need like an exorcist for what you're talking about. Cody, what's your biggest if for Georgia in 2021? If this happens, they're a national title contender.
If they can run the ball efficiently. End of it, dude.
My man.
You have said it every year. Every year, the national champion has a stud freaking running back. Every year, like 6 out of 7 years?
Najee Harris,
Yeah.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Travis Etienne.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? If they can run the
Ezekiel
ball.
Elliott in the first college football playoff.
I don't think Zeus is the guy.
They got plenty of them.
I really don't think. I think Cooks is my guy. I really like him. They need to like utilize him more. They don't really do that. He has more yards per carry than anybody else on the team. You know what I mean? I really, really dig him.
I think
it all
James
depends on the running
Cooks-
game to me.
and we'll dive into what Bill Conley had here in a second, but just going off that, I think James Cooks might be the fifth option in terms of we're going to hand the ball to you. He's definitely a guy they're going to try to get 10 touches a game, but in terms of being just the ball carrier, I think he might be the fifth option. Like Zamir White, Kendall Milton, Kenny McIntosh.
I don't know why Zamir White's even up there. He's not even proven himself
I mean,
to be a good running
was,
back in the SEC.
He was really good last
high
year.
school.
He's just not that game breaker. I know he had that 75-yarder against Florida where he went untouched, but I'm pretty sure if you put any running back for Georgia in that same spot, the way they blocked that one, they're going untouched with that one. But yeah, he hasn't shown elusiveness, and there's been a few times with him where you see the hole, and it's a lot easier for us to see it watching on like the downward camera on TV or from the press box, but you see the hole open up and you expect an elite level running back to make that cut through the hole, and a lot of times he just kind of barrels forward through whatever the pre-designated hole is, which makes your coach really happy if it was like in the 80s where it's just like we're going to hammer this hole for 4 yards at a time. So I mean, I'm kind of with you on that. I do think Zamir White probably towards the end of the year will be the third option because I think Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton are that good. But
I do like McIntosh.
So I mean, like maybe Cooks right now 4, but Kenny McIntosh I think is going to have a big year, and I think Kendall Milton's probably going to be the lead back at the end of the year. All right, let's get into what Bill Connolly said are the biggest Fs, and I think you guys for the most part nailed them, except we didn't really say JT Daniels. His first if late season JT is full season JT, and we haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen JT Daniels, as much as we want to talk about how good he is, play against a really good SEC team. The SEC teams he's played so far, Missouri, pretty average at best, right? South Carolina, really bad last year. Mississippi State at the end of last year were playing with, I think, a 48-man travel squad in that game. And he had over 400 yards in the game. And then we saw him against a really good Cincinnati defense, and he had crazy numbers, but wasn't overly efficient inside the red zone, right? It had some turnovers. So when we say late season JT, I'm like, I think what we saw more so than anything from these, not from the stats, from the play itself, is he brings a different dynamic than what Georgia's had the last 4 years, right? Maybe, no, I'd say even 5 years. Since Aaron Murray left, I'll say that. Since Aaron Murray left, love Hudson Mason, but since Aaron Murray left, he brings a different dynamic than what they've had.
It sound like you love him.
No, I love Hudson, man. He does a great job up on Buck and Hut on 680 The Fan. Maybe he should have handed the ball. I know it wasn't his call. Maybe he should have handed the ball to Todd Gurley up at Bryce that year. But that wasn't his call. That wasn't his call. But that being said, so if late season JT is full season JT, I would add a caveat to that. I want to say if late season JT is full season JT, I'd say if JT lives up to the hype. And it's all there for him, and he hasn't done anything to disprove us. But if he lives up to the hype, I think Georgia's a national title contender. Their second if for Georgia is what Cam said, if the pass catchers step up, because think about what that room was, right? If you're a wide receiver in Georgia's room, your thought process was, it's George Pickens, and then where can I get on the field? Where can I? Because George Pickens is a first-round pick. He's going to have that X position locked up. Yep. Where can I get on the field? All of a sudden, your leader's gone. And probably not coming back this year. I'm going to say that. I mean, ACL tear, what are you going to get back if he does come back towards the end of the season? So all of a sudden, Jermaine Burton went from being, okay, I need to be the number 2 guy, or Kearis Jackson went from, I need to be the number 2 guy, to I have to be that guy. Eric Gilbert came in, transfers in, has never played a snap for the University of Georgia. All of a sudden, he's saying, I have to be that guy. I think Darnell Washington is riding a pretty hot streak from the end of the last year in the Peach Bowl into the spring game. I think he's got a chance to step up in a big-time way. And they have a few other tight ends as well. But those pass catchers have to be huge for Georgia this year, because so many times with Stetson, and I'll say it with Jake Fromm too, we looked at that offense and we were like, what is Fromm doing there? Why is he trying to fit that ball into the tight space? If you zoom out and look at the offense, a lot of it was play calling, but a lot of it was the wide receivers. Nobody was getting open. Nobody was getting off of their breaks and away and creating separation from the DB to make it easy. I know Joe Burrow, right? And Kyler Murray and these guys and Mac Jones, we look at their yards, we're like, these guys were unbelievable. And they were, but how many times did you see Joe Burrow just throw to a Jamar Chase that it didn't have anybody within 10 yards of him? Or the same with Devonta Smith last year in the national championship against Ohio State, where he just absolutely toasted everyone around him, and you just had to put the ball within 3 or 4 yards and he was going to score a touchdown. When was the last time you saw that with Georgia? I think we saw it a few times last year.
Calvin Ridley?
Calvin Ridley for Alabama did that a few times too, Georgia. But no, Riley Ridley, I think he was more of a possession guy, but he did have it a few times. Even McCole Hardman, right? Like he wasn't even able to burn away. George Pickens was starting to do it a little bit, but last year when they did it, guys like Arian Smith who were creating that separation, there wasn't that timing yet with JT Daniels, and so you saw a lot of guys waiting for balls. Yeah, if they can get that tightened up and create that separation, that's what I think when I see pass catchers step up. Right, is I'm not so much worried about the jump balls, because we all know you're athletic and you can go up there and catch those balls. I'm worried about down in and down out. You can create separation from the DBs, and I think that would be huge for Georgia. And I think third, if not the most important one, it's right up there, a new secondary, and this verbiage is important from Bill Connelly, holds up. You don't need them to be the number 1 secondary in the country, right? You just can't have them be a liability. And so Darion Kendrick comes in. Lewis Seen's going to have to step up in a big way with the departure of Richard LeCount. So you're going to be breaking in 2 new boundary corners, a new star, and a new safety. You just can't have them be bad, right? What have we seen out of Alabama's defense last year, Clemson's defense a couple years ago? I'd say even LSU's defense, right? They weren't down in and down out 2009 Alabama dominant, right? It wasn't like you're going to leave bloodied and wishing you played a different sport. It was situationally, we'll turn you over, right? We'll get a big time sack on second down that completely flips the line of scrimmage, right? Where all of a sudden you go from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 17. Yeah, you'll hit some 15-yard passes on us and you'll gap us for a couple of runs, but down in and down out, we're going to be there and you don't know when we're going to be able to pick you off, right? So I think that's really going to be big for the secondary, because your front seven's nasty. With Travon Walker and Jordan Davis and Wyatt's back as well. I mean, you go pretty much 2 deep across. I mean, I didn't even say Jalen Carter, and he might be the best defensive lineman on the team, right? And then you go into the linebacker core, and you have Channing Tindall back. You have Nakobe Dean, who's an All-American candidate.
Dean,
Yeah. On the outside, you have Adam Anderson. Nolan Smith's going to have to step up, but he's that kind of blue chip prospect you have. So your front seven's nasty, and that's actually going to help you in the secondary because they're going to have less time to throw the football. If you can just not be bad, and then maybe throughout the season you start to develop a little bit. Because listen, when you play Clemson, I'll go ahead and book this. You know how they do the over-unders?
Yeah.
Or they do the prop bets. Will Clemson have a touchdown pass of longer than 50 yards? I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. Like, give me that line because, listen, you're going to be starting probably a redshirt freshman at your boundary corner against Clemson. Darian Kendrick will be on the other side, and you'll have somebody else in the slot, but you're going to have a redshirt freshman probably playing corner for you on the outside against Clemson and DJ Uiagalelei. And so
they're going to pick on him. Yeah.
There's going to be a long touchdown pass in that game.
Yeah.
But if inside of that, you can pick him off once, if you can come up with a deflection and somebody picks that off, or you can come up with a couple of crucial second down stops where you get them into third and long and let your defense go to work, that's where this secondary, I think, can start to roll a little bit. And we really saw this last year when you had DeAndre Baker and you had all these other guys in the secondary. Georgia's defense was pretty simple. They're going to man you up for the most part. Last year, we saw them go into zone a lot. And so now that you've had this offseason to rep that a little bit, I think the secondary is in a better spot than a lot of people think, but we won't know until September 4th. So those are Bill Connelly's three. I wanted to go through a couple other teams. Alabama's the defending national champion. Cam, when you think about Alabama, what's your biggest if for them?
If Bryce Young is supposed to be where he's supposed to be, that's really it. That defense is going to be disgusting. So if Bryce Young lives up to the hype, it's going to be hard to beat Bama.
Yeah, and that's his number one thing for Alabama. And Alabama, because we were talking about the tiers, Georgia had 3 ifs, Alabama only has 2. And the first one is if Bryce Young steps up. We have every indication that he will. I think the one thing, Southern, we're not talking about enough, though, is, yeah, you're replacing your quarterback and your top 2 wide receivers and your leading running back and a couple offensive linemen, and everybody just expect that it's going to be business as usual because it usually is business as usual. But outside of all of that, you're replacing Steve Sarkisian, an offensive coordinator, with Bill O'Brien. So when you look at Alabama in 2021, do you think it's just going to be par for the course, or you're just out there again, going to have another 4,000-yard passer, another 1,000-yard running back? You're going to be setting all kinds of records again, or do you think maybe they take a step back this year?
While I wish I could say Bama was taking a step back, It is Bama. Nick Saban is still head coach.
Yeah.
They are still the same caliber that lives up to Bama's name. Nah, I do not think they're taking a step back.
Think about who he brought in on his coaching staff this year, because we're talking about Auburn, right? And we're like, man, they got Mike Bobo as their offensive coordinator, right? They went and got the head coach from Vanderbilt, the head man, Derek Mason. And they brought him in, and he's their defensive coordinator now. Alabama has 2 coaches on their offensive staff who were the head football coaches for NFL teams in the AFC Championship in the past few years. You have Bill O'Brien as your head coach, who is the head coach, or as your offensive coordinator, who is the head coach for the Houston Texans, who a couple of years ago were going head-to-head with Patrick Mahomes and had a huge lead on him. What?
24-0.
Championship game? It was
24-0.
It was 24 points, right?
Yeah. So he had a 3-score lead on Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship. Oh, your offensive line coach is Doug Marrone, the guy who had the Jacksonville Jaguars a bad call away from being in the Super Bowl, is your offensive line coach. If you think anything is going to be different in Tuscaloosa this year, I want some of whatever you're drinking.
No ifs.
Yeah.
You got ifs on here?
I think the second if is pretty interesting because it says if another wide receiver steps up. Because you have John Mechie, and I think Bill Connelly did a really good job. He said you have future All-American John Mechie. I think that's a great point. If you're the number 1 wide receiver on Alabama, you're going to be an All-American, right? He has him on there. If another wide receiver steps up, I think he will, but also at the same time, eventually it has to end. Eventually it can't be Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, Devonta Smith, Henry Ruggs, and I'm forgetting Jalen Waddle. Like, eventually it's not going to be one of those guys. You have John Mechie. Eventually you're not going to have another one, right? Is it this year?
No.
So that's the question mark, because they have like 6 5-stars just stacked up, ready to go. But are they Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, and all those other guys? Eventually it won't be. If it is this year, then of course they're right back in the national championship conversation. Obviously, no ifs on the defensive side for them because they are going to be
Stacked.
nasty.
Yeah.
Quickly though, Cody, I want to get your opinion as a former Florida fan. What's your biggest if for Florida as a contender?
Oh, it's quite a bit. Quarterback.
No. I just need your your biggest if.
The biggest if? Oh, a defense.
Really?
110% defense.
Okay.
I kind of believe in homeboy how he develops quarterbacks.
Yeah,
and
Dan
everything,
Mullen.
you know, and the offense never really lacks anything. They had Felipe Franks there. Yeah, they did well. They had Kyle Trask, got a legendary season last year, and I don't expect anything much different than what they're going to do this year. I think they're going to take a step back a little bit, but I think that defense has been atrocious. He's been trying to get some transfers going out there, but dude, he's like, I think the highest stars that he's signed right now for defense is like 3 stars, and that's being very skirmish about that.
Yeah, there's he's signed some 4 stars over there, and they have a couple of 5-star transfers, including Cox from Georgia, who's playing defensive line, and he might be one of the best pass rushers in the SEC. I think he's going to need to have a big year. But no, you're right. I mean, I don't know so much if it's the players or the scheme. And I think that might have a lot to do with it. And you're losing some guys. I mean, Marco Wilson, for as much as you want to remember his career as the guy who threw the shoe against LSU, he was a damn good corner for them in the SEC. So I think that's defense is going to be big.
Seniors last year too. Yeah.
Mine's not so much the defense because I do think the defense is what it is under Todd Grantham. It's boom or bust, I guess, is the best way to describe their defense. They're not going to be an every down defense like you see out of Alabama's or you see out of Georgia's. They're just not. They're very kind of what we're talking about, that boom or bust defense where they'll get some big sacks off the blitzes and they'll get some turnovers. I'm not even necessarily putting my biggest if on Emory Jones because what I've seen out of him, I think Dan Mullen, I'll give him credit for what he's done in the past with quarterbacks and what I've seen out of Emory Jones because think about Dan Mullen. Can you guys name who the SEC's all-time leading rusher is from a quarterback?
Oh, it's he played for Richmond Hill.
Nick Fitzgerald.
Yeah, Nick Fitzgerald.
Nick Fitzgerald is the SEC's all-time leading rusher as a quarterback, right?
Really?
That's what Dan Mullen did with him at Mississippi State. And you have Dak Prescott. He had Dak Prescott leading Mississippi State to they were the number 1 team in the country in the first ever college football playoff rankings, right? He does amazing things with quarterbacks, right? So Emory Jones, I'm not inherently worried about him. It's the pass catchers.
Yeah. Okay.
You lose Grimes, Tony, and Kyle Pitts.
Yep.
That is amazingly hard to replace. Like we were just talking about it with Alabama, but for Florida, there's no track record of that, right? We talk about Alabama every year, they replace that. There's no track record of that from Florida. So are they able to replace all that? I think we're going to see a lot more ground game from Florida this year. I think Emory Jones with his legs, maybe a little bit more RPO stuff, but more outside the pocket.
Well, I think they got the big guy from LSU. I think that's going to be some type of replacement. It's the biggest signing that they had, biggest type of / recruitment you wanted to really say. The tight end from LSU, right?
He plays for Georgia now, Cody.
Oh, well, who'd they get?
They got him, and then he quit.
Oh,
and then now he's at Georgia.
Dang it!
Where have you been? We
Oh,
literally
no.
just mentioned him when we were talking about Georgia.
Yeah, I lost it.
Yeah.
I lost it.
I'm just going to look at you.
Good. Look at me. Dude, yeah,
They did get a
then.
transfer in from Penn State.
They are screwed then.
Who
Yeah.
he played Justin Shorter should be better, but I mean,
Dang, that sucks.
Virgil writing in now. He said Mullins never had the athletes for the RPO as he has now. Dude, you had Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts last year. I don't think if you ask any coach in the country, can I take my 2 guys or I could take Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts for my RPO offense? Every single team in the country would take them. Sorry, they would.
I mean, he says ever? Like, dude, did you not just get done listening that we had Nick Fitzgerald as the top Russian quarterback in,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he did, I'm just letting you know he did have all that. So
I mean, it is what it is. We'll find out. And listen, the Jamie Newman stuff, Virgil, saying that we said some stuff about him last year, we'll never know because he didn't play. We'll never know, Virgil, but I appreciate the input. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll come back. More second down on the way. That was amazing. I love you so much. We have some sad news to bring you. Some real sad news, and we'll talk about it in the final segment because I don't want to ruin the rest of the show. But we have some sad news to bring to the folks
I brought it up on Friday. You weren't here.
that we're going to talk about. Well, maybe they weren't listening Friday.
I got messages and from everybody and everything.
Yeah.
It's like, thanks.
So we'll do it again so you can get more messages. So we'll talk about that coming up in the next segment. The Braves split a series with the Cardinals. They have the day, or not the Cardinals, the Reds, excuse me.
Yep.
They have the day off today to get back at it against the Mets coming up tomorrow night. But I want to dive back into this Hawks series with you, Cam, because I'm sitting here right now thinking the Hawks are done. Trae Young's hurt, Bogey's hurt. Love Clint Capella, but he's not going to be the one that scores 30 for you. John Collins has played pretty average in this series so far. I mean, maybe I'm being pessimistic. Probably am. But I'm just kind of looking at it. The Bucks are at full strength. You have nothing for Giannis. Chris Middleton found his groove. I mean, is there any reason for optimism?
I mean, it's reason, but me personally, I'm one of those people. I stick to what I say. I say Hawks is 7. I say Hawks is 7 until they lose the series. I'm that dude. I have the Hawks winning next game. They were down 2-1 last round. You're gonna get banged up, but I think they'll be fine. I don't think Chris Middleton scoring 38 points, going 6-12 from the line again. I don't see that. I just don't. You stop Giannis, and then you let everybody else beat you.
Not all 2-1s are created equally during these playoffs. They got smoked by the Bucks 2 games in a row. And we're not talking about
I don't
this.
say smoked. You were tied
Dude.
with 6 minutes to go.
Oh,
Game
last
3.
night, but the game before that, when they
Well, that was
started to
bad.
get heated up.
But that
dude,
was BJ always says
bad.
this. That was the market correction game, right? Where you beat them on their home court in game 1. You knew that was coming in game 2.
Oh
Yeah.
It was a massacre. I was like, oh my gosh.
I mean, Nate McMillan even said, he's like, I had a hard time watching that game tape, which I've heard that from a lot of coaches. Like, when you get blown out, sometimes you just throw the tape away.
it was like
when you don't do anything right, it's like, you know what?
it was like the Patriot Tomahawk scenes. It's so hard to watch, but you're watching it anyways.
That was a
rough,
very obscure reference, but I
Rough.
appreciate it, and I love that from you.
rough, son.
So you're telling me that there's a chance.
Yeah, it's only 2-1. It's always a chance when you just in the series 2-1. It's always a chance.
If I'm a betting man, I'm hammering. I'll say Bucks in 6.
Oh, most definitely. If you're a betting man, yeah, but you could say that about any round with the Hawks, especially last round. It was down 2-1 against a higher seed who was supposed to be better than the Bucks. So, of course, but we'll just have to see come tomorrow. I think they'll win tomorrow, actually. So,
If Trey isn't 100%, they're getting smoked.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this.
Yep.
If like your second best player in Bogdanovich is already slow to the point where he's not playing very well at all. If Trae Young can't do it, Southern, listen, it's been a fun season.
Like you said, it's been a fun season, but we still don't know. MRI today for Trey. So I think come tomorrow we'll have a better take on what this next game will look like.
And listen, it's one of those things where I know people were talking about the Knicks fans where at the beginning of the season you just desperately wanted to make the playoffs, but then all of a sudden it became because you got bounced in the first round by the Hawks. The season was a disappointment. Hawks fans, you have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. That is a huge accomplishment. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. You were not supposed to be here. If you go back and listen to some of the videos, some of the radio before the playoffs started, people were saying the Knicks got a favorable matchup in round 1, right? And then when they beat the Knicks, people were saying, "Oh, dream scenario for the 76ers right here," right? And so it's just, and before Game 7, right, where the Nets get knocked out and the 76ers are sitting there looking like, "Oh, I don't even have to play the Nets and we could go to the finals." Oh, you ran into the Hawks. Dream scenario.
Update on Trae Young just came out about 2 minutes ago. Has a bone bruise on his right foot and is questionable for Game 4.
I think anybody, just me reading into that, anybody who goes and gets a diagnosis automatically becomes questionable.
Yeah.
And I think you'll probably like 2 or 3 hours before the game tomorrow, if I had to guess, that'll be updated to probable.
Okay.
Just gives the gives the Bucks something else to think about. So you all of a sudden you have to start game planning for Lou Williams running the point instead of Trae Young. It just gives them something else to think about. Old Mike Budenholzer.
With the bone bruise, how much? I know we don't know to the extent, but we have seen this before in players, and it actually takes. Usually they sit out a few games.
Southern, what did you go to school for?
Sports journalism.
Cody, what did you go to school for? Archaeology?
Anthropology.
Yeah. Cam, what did you go to school for?
This right here, not basically, mass
Yeah, we have
communication.
0 MDs on this, so I have no diagnosis for you on a bone bruise.
Hey,
But
I've had a couple bone bruises in my career.
Southern,
Get
if
it,
you-
girl.
Southern, if you had a bone bruise, could you take off and dunk?
Hey, I've never dunked, but I've done a couple flips in the air,
That's
and
true.
I did it with a torn meniscus. So I think Trae Young
Oh,
can do
so
it.
Southern's saying tough it out.
Hey, I didn't. Don't put me on that.
No, Southern say tough it out. Just stick with it. We got to take a quick break. We'll come back. Final segment next. Can't believe you're doing this to me, man.
My heart's full.
I can't believe you're doing this to me. I guess for those of you, because I wasn't one of them, for those of you who didn't watch the show on Friday, if you missed the announcement.
I had the host, dude. You missed out. Yeah, freaking Ben left us. I got hard network.
I'm trying to be heartfelt here.
Okay.
Our man Cody Queen is leaving us at the end of the week. This is your last week.
Oh,
This is my last week.
I mean, we've been here since the jump
Interns together. Yep.
together.
Grinded together.
Like, you knew me for like 2 days. Took me to the PGA Championship with you,
I did.
or the Tour Championship, excuse me.
We got kicked out from behind the scenes.
We did.
Yeah.
You know, you let two interns walk around a PGA major, and you
True.
give them free beers.
It was true.
They're going to stumble into places they're not supposed to stumble into.
We did. They was
And
not happy.
I'm not going to name names, but we stumbled into a place where all of a sudden we were 3 feet from some major winners.
It was an accident. We were just looking for a bathroom, literally.
Yeah.
And they were like, and then we tried to stay, and like the guy caught us. He was
And
like,
then
"Get out of here."
no, he looked at us. Then he looked away, and then he looked back at us, and we were both just kind of gave him that look where you got busted. And we had our credentials on, but it was they weren't the right credentials, and he said, "Get the hell out of here."
No, like
And we
I
did.
I got awarded a house there too. First thing comes out of this guy's face was like, "He want a house," and the guy was like,
Hey,
"I don't care.
I don't
get
care."
out." Like I was like, okay.
Don't
Yep.
care, but man, it's gonna be a fun week. We're
It
going to
is.
get more amazing takes about how Eric Gilbert's going to be a significant contributor, not only for Georgia, but for Florida as well this year, apparently, from you. So we have a lot to look forward to this week, but I just wanted to pass that news along, man. Your last week with us.
Yeah, I started 2017, March-ish. You came around in like April, like
Yeah.
right afterwards. I went to the Super Bowl, so that was that was pretty
you got
cool.
all that out of it.
Yeah,
you got a
so-
job, but the most important thing is you went to the dang Super Bowl. So we'll obviously look back at some of the great moments in Cody Queen history. I mean, great is a relative term, but we'll look back at all of those throughout the week. But man, Cody, we're gonna miss you. And true Christian Gokel fashion, I won't be here for your last day.
You
So,
won't, yeah. Thanks.
So we'll have to do that early. 3 and Out coming up next.